everybody. This is Duncan MacPherson. I'm joined with Chris Jeppesen, and we are very excited to present this next step in our series called the Coiled Spring, where we're going to outline a methodical, actionable plan to compress your 5-year business plan into 24 months. And Chris, I know you've had countless conversations with some of the best teams in America, and you too have identified that many of these teams are no longer trying to manage through this turbulence. They're focusing on now on emerging from this episode and what it's going to reveal in their enterprise. And it's very exciting to feel that energy.
Thank you, Duncan. And it's great to be able to join everybody on the webinar. There's no doubt it reminds me a lot, and you've been through like 2008 and 2000, and it is looking at things differently when everyone else is in retreat or in competitor proofing what they have, protecting, that they lean into the opportunity. It's been refreshing to hear. And as everyone on the call knows, all we're doing is sharing with you the proven strategies of elite advisors, what it is that they're doing right now. And it's evolving. It's been interesting to watch over the last month that we've kind of evolved from this. It was initially that idea of just, this is crazy. It's denial. I can't believe this. The market will snap right back. And then we go from denial to a little bit of anxiety and maybe some fear, anger, right? Like, how is it that you can't see around corners? And now we're in acceptance, and people are saying it's the new normal. Well, it's a little more than that, as I think we'll uncover later today.
I've had a couple of advisors tell me that this is a Darwinian period, and not from the standpoint of survival of the fittest. It's who can adapt. And you're right. We're fortunate that we have 2008, and it's still surreal that is 12 years ago, but we have that as a frame of reference. And because otherwise, a lot of what we're going to talk about would seem so counterintuitive and contrarian. But as a wise man said, this is where the enlightened win. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this, because you're right. None of this is rooted in a theoretical construct. This is all drawn from the many interactions that we've had with some of the best people in the business. So let's move to the next slide. Before we get in too deep, let's just set some expectations and let everybody know where they can go when we're done.
I've always found that people get the most from webinars, at least I do, and is if I can just kind of be in the moment and kind of internalize what it is that's being said, and not be too preoccupied with, wow, I really like that slide, how do I get it? We have constructed a knowledge bank housed, and we'll give you access to that with all of the videos, both for CSAs, for advisors, content galore, all of these slides, a PDF version of it. So just throughout our comments, our brief comments today, just know that you will have access at the end to get everything that you want, from the advisor playbook, our advisor consulting group, access to each one of the professionals within there, as well as stated, the economic commentary by Brian Westbury, most read, most shared research on Wall Street. We want to provide all of that to you. Just know that it's there at your disposal, as well as really what, Duncan, we've been able to put together in that knowledge bank, which has been shocking, the feedback on that.
Yeah, very, very gratifying to hear how much traffic that knowledge bank has received and the impact. And, we were joking just offline that, this is the longest I've gone without having a haircut, longest I've gone not being in an airplane. And we're kind of forcing the issue because I'm very, very excited about our virtual practice management summit that we have coming up toward the end of May. And that'll, of course, be archived and be evergreen. And just the bench strength at First Trust and within Pareto It's incredible, and everybody is at redline in terms of talking to advisors and the diversity of themes that is going to be in that Coiled Spring virtual summit. I'm very, very excited about that. And of course, that'll be in the Knowledge Bank. And of course, we're also very active on LinkedIn as well. So we encourage everybody, if you're not already part of our community, just look for us. Chris Jeppesen, Duncan MacPherson. We'd love to see you there and chime in. Feel free to, graze and enjoy the content, but let us know what's working, because that's where we're drawing so many of these best practices. So with that, let's step in. I think the first thing we'll do as we move to the next slide is just talk about some observations. Now, I really want to have you drill down a little bit more into the theme of acceptance. That you have some really neat insights on that. I'd like you to start there, and then we'll walk through this.
We've transitioned now. We both done a number of calls for a lot of firms and all the leading firms on Wall Street and broker dealers. And what I'm hearing a lot from top level management to the advisor is that we're into the acceptance mode, where the 500-point swings like today and yesterday, 1,000-point movements in the market, negative oil prices, inverted yield curve. Hey, we just accept that this is craziness, and our clients will be fine with that. I'd be very, very careful here, because this is what we've witnessed as the acceptance trap. To think that just competitor proofing and playing defense will help us position to grow and emerge from this. The coiled spring is a great visual. I love that on that first slide, because it is coiled, it is tight, it is about ready to pop. And for the advisors on the forefront, it is. The spring is springing. It has sprung. And these advisors are not accepting that, and you know this to be the case, the self-made ultra high net worth individual did not get to where they are accepting the status quo. They got to where they were because they were open to the possibilities of improvement. And as far as for advisors, the advisor that's able to, in a brief, specific, and proprietary way, communicate why that alternative is best for that high net worth family, assets will move, just like they did in 08, just like they did in 2000. And that 5-year plan, as you mentioned, that went to 24 months, it's not a joke. They will come out stronger and emerging as the leaders for new assets for, I believe, years to come.
I have to agree, and I think it's such a great concept to lead with. And it's interesting when things are chugging along in business. We're talking about the theme of breaking through a plateau, right? Unlocking the next level. Well, there's a different form of plateau that can come out of the acceptance trap, and it's just a different dynamic around complacency. And the one thing I know about Americans, Canadians, in any field of endeavor, financial services, entrepreneurship, athletics, is they're never complacent, and they're not resting on the status quo and their inertia confidence. So you're right, I don't see top advisors accepting the new normal for long. They're always going to be pushing and reaching, which is why
as you just said that, Duncan, this last week, and I'm sure a number of people watching this have also watched The Last Dance, that Chicago Bulls narrative on Michael Jordan and their last championship. And one of the things that Coach Dean Smith, Michael Jordan's coach, said in that documentary that I thought was really interesting is he said, Michael has an on switch and an off switch. And he never used the off switch. He was always on, always competing, never, ever relaxing. It was every play, both offense and defense. that mentality is what I'm witnessing with these teens. They're like, what am I missing? How do we get the message out right now? Can we tweak our brand to become more timely to attract? They're just always evolving, always on. And just reminded me as you were saying that of that show that was just on.
It's such a great analogy, and what we're trying to do here is be the dimmer switch and bring the light back up, even just a little bit more gradually, because many advisors, especially the enlightened, they're so measured in their approach. They don't overreact. They don't underreact. They're the voice of reason on many, many levels. So let's just bring the light back up here, and let's drill into some of these observations as a starting point, because for somebody who will not accept complacency or any form of plateau, they're striving for self-actualization. That's their reason for being. These three laws are universal, or because the advisor playbook, our interactions, we've always been mindful of the immutable universal laws and principles that affect us, that govern us, and we do have to respect them. So let's talk about these three, because if you look at the image to the right, okay, so we went into the turbulence in March, and it got real fast. And we worked through that, and I'd love to think, as an optimist, that we're coming out of that, and we all want to come out of that better than ever. So how do we do that? How do we engineer that? Little's Law. So Little's Law, as you know, essentially says that the closer someone gets to their natural capacity, the more things tend to break down and real flaws start to emerge. And this is a terrific time to look at capacity, to look at what growth really means, and how to let Little's Law serve us, not hurt us. And I'm looking forward to expanding on that with you as we go further.
Yeah.
McNamaras fallacy, I mean, Chris, you know this, projections and models. I mean, a lot of big brains out there, a lot of those projections and models, they're gone. And McNamaras fallacy was, you remember how the statement read, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it? McNamaras fallacy basically says that the only things that really matter are the quantitative. And here's what this has revealed. You can't count everything that counts. And the qualitative right now, that X factor, that bedside manner, whatever you want to call it, that's real. And that's going to decommoditize an advisor. And if an advisor can transform that into an intellectual property, part of their culture, their ability to achieve professional contrast, I mean, that's like the launch codes. It'll just go through the roof. And I know you buy into that.
You don't really even have to buy into it. You can just witness advisors that embrace it, right? That's the beauty of what we do. This is why we became coaches and consultants, was to really take note and follow those that go against the trend. I mean, everyone wants to say that they're a contrarian. But yeah, we're really seeing it in these times. This is where a real contrarian can stand out.
Yeah, it's interesting. When things are chugging along, you'll say to an advisor, hey, let's talk about your value proposition. Like, what do you do? What makes you unique? And it's common, a lot of them will say, well, we do things a little differently. And then you pop the hood and you realize you don't actually do things a whole lot differently than the 50 others who are competing for your business. And again, that's a bit of a byproduct of inertia, confidence, entropy. So we want this to serve us. So let's go to the last of the three, the entrepreneurial paradox. So incredible as we've transformed our realities from tangible to virtual. and so much digital interaction. The entrepreneurial paradox says you're truly successful and on the verge of greatness the day you've made yourself obsolete and the day that your business is not at the mercy of maverick talent. And so many people that I've talked to, like they wanted to buy into that, like they wanted to really understand that, but now you get a team of 7, 8, 9 people who are now in satellites. They're now in silos. And it reveals a lot in terms of function, dysfunction, and some of that X factor. And we're going to talk about.
I think it's also important to mention right there that those that in the times of plenty stored away and created a procedures manual and created processes and took things out of their head and put them down on paper, were able to delineate team roles and responsibilities for this moment, that it's not just absolute chaotic. There were reasons why we laid all of that groundwork so that when this moment happened, you emerge from it.
Well, what's fascinating, you brought this up this morning, is that there are many teams. It's not like things have stopped. I mean, there are teams who are still hiring and adding to their org chart and their bench strength. There are still acquisitions happening, and yet they're not happening in an actual physical boardroom.
It was interesting that what you said there is because that was a real question. They said we're growing through this, and the longer we stay in this, the professional contrast that we've been able to create between us and their current advisor has become so obvious. We need to increase capacity. And by increasing capacity, we've got to hire. And so their question was, we've gone down the road pretty far, but we still haven't met this person face to face. Do we keep going? And so these are the kind of questions that we have come up, and it's a good problem to have through this, and we want everyone to have it.
And here's what's fascinating. You know, a fee-for-service, knowledge-for-profit business, it's not classic bricks and mortar. Focusing on intellectual property, focusing on best practices, focusing on that playbook that you talked about is so profoundly important. And a moment ago, you said this is why we became coaches. You know, in one of our earlier webinars, we talked about how we wanted advisors to really lead with their purpose and their calling in all of their conversations with their clients and say, this is why I became a financial advisor. Well, we're telling advisors now, don't be your own best kept secret. Tell your clients what it is specifically that you and your team are doing right now to emerge from this better than ever. And for example, a couple of days ago, I talked to a team. Many of their clients are business owners, and they're saying, we're looking at this as a gift to really refine and optimize our business. We're working on our business, elevating our client experience through best practices. Business owners get that, and they appreciate that. But that phrase, this is what we're doing, it's part of the fountain. It's part of the beacon. It's part of the optimism. We're not playing defense. We're not reacting. We're plowing ahead. We know we're coming out of this, and this is what we're doing. It's a powerful statement. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about some of the silver linings. Oh, and by the way, I added this slide. You inspired this, Chris. A lot of advisors, they say, okay, yeah, I want to create a playbook. I want to create a procedures manual. I just don't know where to start. And we say, okay, you need to start with an org chart, not a list of your bench strength, an actual organizational chart based on roles and responsibilities. And you need a procedures manual based on the rule of 3, where you document anything and everything you do that has 3 or more steps that you do 3 or more times. And they say, okay, but that's still pretty big and pretty abstract. And they say, okay, here's a placeholder. And it's called always on. Working on the business comes down to this: 4 quadrants. And all of your team can contribute to this and use this as a checklist, a template to get clear on your strengths, get clear on your gaps, and this is the launch pad to creating a playbook. Always on. So on site, this is your fit process. Okay? So when you meet a prospective client, how do you create professional contrast? How do you ensure it's bought, not sold? How do you bring them to the signing ceremony? On site. Then there's on board. Obviously you've got to transition them away from the advisor they just fired. And there's technical and logistical elements, and then there is a dynamic experience to fast track that new client to advocate status. That's the onboarding process. Then there's ongoing, right? The dust settles. We're still virtual. How do you show them and how do you future pace a client experience that they can really get excited about, that will firewall that relationship, that will get out in front of developing needs and create incredible advocacy? And then, how do you instill and how do you project a culture to your clients that you will respond to any and all moments of truth, critical life events, and milestones that occur in your client's life?
That right there, Duncan, too, I'll just add, because this is a critical time for this. It's easy right now to feel like, well, we're just going to try to maintain until we come out of this and we're back in our office and then we can get back to work. Let's not lose sight of the opportunity that exists in front of us. Yesterday, my daughter graduated college. First kid that we've had that went off to school, and she's graduated. And for all the fanfare, right? No, there was no graduation. We didn't fly out anywhere. No robes, no pictures. But it was still kind of a big deal. But it was anticlimactic, right? I mean, what can you really do while we're in this quarantine type environment? And yet, I get an Amazon box 2 days before her graduation at the door. And it's a shirt from the university that she graduated that said "Proud Dad" and "Proud Mom." And I'm like, well, that was sure thoughtful. Who is it? My financial advisors. I'm like, how? Well, I must have said something. I mean, they must have known. They didn't let it slip. They put it inside the system. It's part of their process. If you want to recognize life events, why not do it when no one else is? So that every little effort that you provide is exponentially more recognized. So these events are still happening in people's lives. I would encourage you to seek out more opportunities to bring attention and focus to it, and it'll mean that much more for them. So that onward's big. And by the way, each one of these quadrants, onboarding, if you'd like greater detail, an onboarding service timeline, what you do day one within 7 days, 14, 35 days, 90 days out. What does this look like in real application integrated with inside your CRMs? These things are all available. That's part of that knowledge bank that we've created.
And Chris, you know what's fascinating about this? And it never occurred to me until this episode. So because of our work with First Trust, we meet so many amazing advisory teams, several of whom have international clients all over the world. Singapore, Argentina, South Africa. They never meet their clients. And yet they are deploying that entire template right there, virtually. So I'm not suggesting, we're going to come back to a point of normality, but your new normal is to, in the meantime, create a virtual client experience framed in that, knowing that it's going to dazzle clients when we come out of it.
No doubt.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So we talked about coming out of this better than ever. Let's talk about the silver linings. Things that get revealed that not only let us know, like, we're going to be okay, but I think we're going to be better than okay. And these are the three most common silver linings that we've seen. We saw it also in '08. The first, of course, is growing down. And we're just going to plant a seed here and then get into it as we progress a little bit further on. But, forever we've been talking about the goal is not to see how big you can get, it's how small you can stay. And there's so many reasons why that's applicable.
And this market will reveal for you who is the good fit, right? We've used the language before. We're not all things to all people, but we are all things to some people. Well, crisis reveals that character of those that truly trust the process and are on board with what it is and what value it is that you bring to the table. That growing down will create that opportunity to do that. And that's client facing as well. And we'll get into how to that communicate it.
Well, for the time being, let's connect this to Little's Law, because there have been, and I don't know what the science is, but there's been maybe 2 out of every 10 advisors I've spoken to where I've had to call them on their voice over the phone. I say, you sound a little stressed. You sound like you're putting on a brave face, but I don't know if you really actually believe this. And basically what that's revealed is the advisor saying, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm working harder than I've ever worked, but it feels like I'm kind of spinning my wheels. And then it sort of slips out that there's a couple of clients that maybe aren't bought into the process or maybe aren't a good fit. And this is my question, to just sort of really get their attention and disrupt them. I'll just long pause and I'll say, what have you got to lose? And the advisor takes a moment and says, what do you mean? I said, well, you're either going to lose your sanity, you're going to lose your health, or there's going to be some other form of collateral damage that's coming from you trying to plug all the holes in these dikes. You've got too many clients. So what have you got to lose? I think you're going to lose some clients. And there's a number of different ways you can do that respectfully, professionally. But, both of us, we've talked to advisors who, as part of their reframe and their renewal, they're telling all their clients that they've had an epiphany. And they're saying, we're working with a consulting firm, we're elevating our client experience, and we've come to a realization that we're going to grow our business from 300 clients down to 100. We're going to stop trying to be all things to all people. We're going to be all things to some people. And I want to outline for you what that looks like. What that reveals and the quality of the conversations that creates have been staggering. We'll get more into that as we progress through this.
Well, it's the building block for the next steps, right? We can't move up market and provide the service experience and really the credibility to go after that larger relationship while trying to maintain too many households. And that move up market strategy is also revealed, and kind of the depth and breadth of what we do.
Well, first of all, the vein of gold of untapped opportunity, this episode has shattered the perception that so many very high quality clients have for their advisors. Things were rocking along, things were somewhat calm, and everything was fine. And, the clients were busy and no news, good news, all of that. And then the storm hits, and these very high quality clients are saying to themselves, okay, this has got to stop. I need to think of my options. My point is, the opportunity for the enlightened advisor, there has never been a better time to move up market than right now, because of professional contrast, because of how revealing this is. I mean, respectfully, the bar is low. And I want to make sure that advisors capitalize on that opportunity. We're going to show them how to do that as we progress.
Those new assets right now are sitting at those index type houses, paying virtually nothing for the management because it wasn't needed and warranted. And after 10 years, can you blame the ultra high net worth for shifting billions and billions of dollars over there? I mean, they looked great. They looked great. And right now they're wondering, wow, did I really save anything? Because it only cost me 35%, and I'm all on my own to save the 1% that it would have cost to have somebody with a clearly defined process for taking advantage of fundamentally sound businesses with strong balance sheets, with improving return on equities, with low debt that are currently dislocated from their fair value. Who's doing the homework now? This is it, right? I'm excited to witness and once again bring back to everybody here listening how advisors are doing it.
Well, that was one of those examples where I don't know if you accidentally or intentionally laid out a nugget of pure gold. That phrase, that question, did I really save? That is profound. And as an advisor who is a fee-for-service, process-driven, they have to weave that question into the repertoire when they're meeting with a prospective client who's got this sort of overhang and these assets floating around cobbled together that have not been brought into a cohesive process-driven approach. How much did you really save? Having it floating out there, that's very powerful.
Well, I mean, at least there's 0.75% that they didn't. Well, I guess you have to break that down over a quarterly. So 25 bits they saved first quarter. I'm sure they're feeling good about that.
Funny. The point about depth and breadth is now is also a phenomenal time to reintroduce yourself to the world, putting as much emphasis on practice and process as you do your people. Because it's proprietary. It can't be commoditized. And because of all the things we've talked about, the appreciation for that value has been rekindled with the right client. Okay, so as we progress, I want to spend a little bit of time because you've really made this a focal point around the dialogue of down markets. Because what this has revealed is an advisor's ability to really communicate. They don't have the luxury of real, authentic body language and energy of presence. They're on the phone, they're on Zoom, they're on Skype. This is a tremendous opportunity for an advisor and their entire team to refine and optimize not just what they are communicating, but what they are, the intake of what a client is saying, and then putting that back on the client in a reassuring manner. So I'd like for you to help advisors self-assess and understand.
It's interesting because we tell people all the time, right, in coaching, 80% of what you communicate is nonverbal, right? It's going to be intonations, it will be body language, and things like that. I had an occasion that I shared this with you this morning, where I was lost, and this has probably happened to everybody at some point. And I tell you, I was in New York, and I'm there a fair amount, and I somehow had ended up somewhere. I wasn't really sure where I was, so I found somebody who looked like a New Yorker. I'll tell you what that means later. So I go up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for this building." And he paused a little bit. And he says, "Well, I think now you can stop talking." Now, I didn't say this to him, and that's what I'm saying in my own voice in the back of my head. It doesn't matter what you say next. I am not following these directions. But go ahead and finish so I can go ask somebody else. And all it was someone who didn't know what to say in the moment it was asked, therefore lost all credibility as to what it is they were going to tell me. Having a real purpose for your conversations when running through a call rotation is critical. When you add ums and uhs and qualifying words, all you're doing is elevating the anxiety of the level of the person who's looking to you for direction. Sonar is something that we have advocated throughout the advisor playbook and for years. And the most recent one I had an advisor share with me, I thought went really well. He said, Chris, he goes, can I share with my Sonar? He goes, I'm telling clients right now, I'm calling them and revealing, we're in a situation right now. That's the S. We're in a situation where the market is in a complete panic. It's induced by a pandemic or a global health crisis. What that has presented is the O, the opportunity. That opportunity is found in companies that are fundamentally sound who are trading well below fair value. What we need is to remember our purpose and stick to our plan and trust the process of identifying those fundamentally sound balance sheets that have mass amounts of liquidity, rising returns on equity, and low debt, those that will emerge better from this market. What our action step is at this point is to employ a team of chartered financial analysts, certified financial analysts, to identify those companies, acquiring those incrementally. This is why our process has allowed for a given amount of cash for you to live in the foreseeable future, all of your living expenses without worry and concern. This is also why our process has allowed for a reservoir of dry powder so that we can take advantage of these dislocations in pricing. The result, at the end of the day, is bringing more clarity, more confidence, and more conviction around your family's long-term financial picture. That comes into incredible focus. Now, there's Sonar. There's a reason for calling. You're covering the bases. You can add what it is that your process is. One advisor told me, he goes, Chris, it's real simple. After 20%, every 5% incremental decline in the market, we're taking X percent from our dry powder reservoir of cash to incrementally dollar cost average into the market. If it goes down another 5, it triggers the next step. If it doesn't, we maintain that level of cash while feeling comfortable that we've allowed for a reservoir of cash to provide for the ongoing living expenses for years out. Clients love the plan. They love the fact that there is no, I think you might want to go back on 35th South. It could be 32nd, but I'm not real sure. But try going back on 30. Really? No, thank you. I appreciate your time. So that's the best I can share with you is know the directions and make sure that it sounds like you know as well.
Well, that helps. The thing I love about Sonar is it's deliberate, it's intentional, it's a frame. So it's not this stream of consciousness, and it's not whether or not the advisor's got the technical ability, it's the interpretation, because like you in New York, the client's trying to jump ahead. Like, they're not hanging on to every word. They're having their own inner dialogue. And the moment they come to the conclusion that, you know what, I don't think this guy knows where the building is, air quotes, building. It's such an interesting thing. We talked about situational awareness, which is obviously the ability to pivot and be nimble based on external dependencies and these lightning strikes. There's a learned helplessness that comes from AI. Like if you use GPS, you go from A to B, you end up at B. You have no idea how you got there. Okay? Robo can do that to a client. They have no idea how they got there, one way or the other, whatever the outcome is like. The key here is using the psychology of social proof, letting people know what other people are feeling and doing, understanding some of the fundamentals like Maslow. What do people want? What do people aspire to? Right now, what they want is they want to belong to something. They want to just feel a sense of calm and, yeah, we'll get through this. And that's the power of sonar. And it's funny, I don't know if you watched or if it was recent, but sonar, I thought of when I saw the Hunt for Red October and the ping, right? And how, powerful that was. The client's tone, the client's question, that's the ping. And you're trying to capture that and then relay something to the client that will just put them at ease. And it's got to be by design. You have to be process driven in terms of how you manage a relationship, which means how you're perceived, how you're described, and how they interpret your value. So let's build.
For sonar to work, for it to work, you have to actively listen.
Nice segue.
And that's a great one. When listening, this idea of actively listening, instead of to stop talking about it, right? This is what I would do to encourage or to leave someone feeling as if they've been heard and listened to, that it's been internalized what it is that they're feeling, is to listen for specific words that they use and to explore deeper upon those feelings by using those words back with the client. I'm feeling really anxious. Frankly, I'm just uncertain that we should have anything in the market right now. Anxious, uncertain. Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this uncertainty? What does that mean to you? Can you tell me this anxiety, like across a spectrum? If we had a spectrum of anxiousness or uncertainty, where on one end we have those that aren't sleeping or eating in complete panic mode and selling everything that they have and buying canned goods and high-powered rifles. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have those that understand that 200 years of a market history have produced 22 corrections and 22 out of 22 have recovered, and that exercising patience while a strategy, also identifying opportunities and putting into place the dry powder that we've held aside for these buying opportunities is, trying to keep them from trying to put it all to work, in other words. So you kind of have both ends of the spectrum. So Mary, where would you find yourself, do you think, on that spectrum? This gives them an opportunity to be heard. They know they've been heard. And once they've been heard, it's easier to move the conversation along. Don't move that conversation until they've been validated for where their concerns are at. That's basically actively listening.
Well, and it's a two-way street. The message and the messenger, it's not just the advisor. What you described there is how you honor the messenger and the emotion that's fueling the client's message. It's a lost art. And incidentally, while I'm thinking about it, on the Knowledge Bank, as you know, Marcy, one of our coaches, she did a 6-minute video on the art of listening.
Tremendous watch. And this is, I guess I would also say, if you're not connected with Marcy on LinkedIn, or I'm sure we're probably already connected with Duncan and myself on LinkedIn, a lot of really good content is created out of that knowledge bank and posted on LinkedIn. Follow us, and we won't disappoint, I promise.
Okay, so let's build on this. And of course, actively listening, honoring the messenger, and honoring the apprehensions that will be the springboard to some anticipation being restored. There's a capacity issue there. I mean, we've talked about deserve and need and client count and all of that. It's hard if you've got too many clients. So just to connect that, but let's drill down a little bit further. Part of honoring the messenger is offering reassurance, and that's virtually, it's tangibly, it's digitally. Let's talk about reassuring clients.
I asked for a medical professional as an example, and I've used this before, that The most trusted profession in America right now is a nurse, probably even more so through this crisis. The nurse is the one who's really interacting more hands-on with the client. That interaction, that deep, meaningful contact on offering reassurance, a bridge for that would be, this is where you can share what it is you believe and what it is you feel. This is what we believe when it comes to these markets. This is what we feel. We're reasonably confident that at some point you'll be standing in a Starbucks line again. We're reasonably confident that you'll continue to shave, as Warren Buffett once said, through a downturn. So reassurance is what you feel and what you believe, and that's based on and rooted in what you know. And this is where you can show professional competence by sharing with the data that supports what it is you feel and believe. That's awfully reassuring when it's brief, it's specific, and it's proprietary. Brevity is important here. When someone's doesn't have a good handle of a concept, they talk a lot about talking about it. When someone understands it, they can explain it to you succinctly. They can be specific on what our next action items are, and they can do it in a way which you can't get somewhere else. And so that's what we want to leave you with.
Well, and you can amplify the impact of your verbal reassurances with specific actions as well, because situational awareness means you take action. You're not just aware of it, you do something with it. You and I were talking about this. I mean, kids are still graduating from high school virtually. Kids are still graduating from college and university and going through final exams, birthdays, anniversaries, illness, and worse. These are moments of truth and milestones and critical life events. Now is the perfect time to honor those events verbally and tangibly. We've obviously...
It's reassuring there, Duncan, as you said that. It's reassuring to a client that they know this isn't time off for you. This isn't where you're just waiting till you get back. One of the things that an advisor did, and I know you've done at Pareto, is to show people that we're still here. And you did a snapshot of every member of your team, of them working from home, from the computer like this, of the webinar. And I just love this. When you look at this, this is kind of that, you mentioned earlier, people want to feel like they belong. Look, this team is here on your behalf. We're at home, but we're thinking about you. We never lose sight of what's important to you. And I tell you, I really enjoy this idea. I shared it with a number of advisors who've now done it and sent an email out, and people wearing quirky different things, but they're all there for them, and it makes them feel that they're part of it. And what it does is it's another bonding moment with a client that I think it really kind of solidifies the relationship.
And it's all part of the signal to noise ratio. Like that signal, like that image there, those are people, they're smiling. There's no dread. And your reactions, like you know how I feel about lavish cards. I mean, sending the kid of a great client who crushed it in grade 12 or 12th grade, or whatever their accomplishment was.
Did it be addressed? It's got to be addressed to the kid, right? Don't send it to the parents. Address it to the kid. Sign your name, and I guarantee you, what are they going to do? Mom, I got this really nice card from, who is this? Oh, those are our advisors. They knew you were graduating. It's kind of a big deal. They want to congratulate. I mean, you don't think that's going to make parents? These are moments where every effort is amplified dramatically. So no doubt, message versus messenger is important, and reassurance, a calmness, that voice of reason, will resonate.
Well, and in the spirit of dig your well before you're thirsty, we'll be talking about money in motion and flow and continuity and succession why not develop a relationship with the next gen now? Send them a card congratulating them. Send them a copy of The Richest Man in Babylon. Tell them in the card, congratulations on your achievement. It's a big deal. Your parents are singing your praises. And by the way, this is the only book you'll ever need to achieve your own financial independence.
That's a great gift.
And I mean, it's tangible. They get to hold it in their hands. It's a book. It's not an app. I mean, I'll tell you, a couple of Christmases ago, it warmed my heart when my oldest son asked for Jimi Hendrix Experience on vinyl. Like, I love getting back to some of that old school. Kids hold the book and they're like, wow. And then they read it. It's a story, not a data dump. Kid starts walking around the house going, pay yourself first. Right. And the parents are just like, this is golden. So reassurance comes in a number of different ways. And it starts obviously with listening, form, compartmentalize, situational awareness, and responding and empowering the team to take action. There should be a form budget for every enterprise. And everybody who's on that team is empowered to make decisions, to go on to Amazon and order The Richest Man in Babylon and not ask for permission. Just do it. Do it. It's part of the budget. We've accounted for it. Make a statement. We don't just care about you. We care about what you care about. There's never been a better time. Silver linings everywhere if you look for them. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go to the next slide. This is where we're going to start to talk a little bit more about what it really means to grow down. Now, automating. So this is going to be my shout out for the wholesale team at First Trust. Because, I mean, I haven't seen them for 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, you're talking to them all the time, but your wholesaling crew has an amazing command of what it means to add automation into a client experience that does not, it elevates the client experience for the right addressable audience. So I don't want to steal any of the thunder if you feel like you want to comment on that, but my call to action is anybody who wants to automate the wealth management deliverable as part of their client experience has to reach out and speak to their whole First Trust wholesaling professional. And I'll let you add to that if you want.
I think that's kind. I wouldn't add anything to it. I think if you haven't experienced it, whatever I tell you wouldn't do it justice. Just I'd reach out and partner with, because that's what they are. They're true partners in helping you grow. So we'll leave you the resource for that.
Yeah, beautiful. And we'll talk a little bit more about what automation means in the client experience, even for the 20%. But we're going to come to that at the right time in a moment. Let's talk about allocate. There has never been a better time to allocate certain clients, especially in the movable middle or in the 80%. These are your B, C, D, or AF clients, family members of A clients, to allocate them to another advisor on your team, where you can simply say, during this period, we've been working hard at actually working on the business and elevating the client experience. We've identified ways to elevate how we can impact and reach our clients. And this is our conclusion. And then allocate them to that advisor as a person, but let the client know that the practice and the process is consistent. Allocation. There's never been a better time. And I mean, I could parade advisors through this room. If it's positioned thoughtfully and with authenticity, clients will interpret that as being in their best interest. And it really is. And you're also able to consciously go deeper with the most deserving clients you have and not trivialize those who need you. You can't be spending time with people who need you at the expense of the people who deserve you. So there's never been a better time to allocate.
And I would add that the motivation behind growing down, and it's important to acknowledge this because I see different people taking this idea and they're doing it for the wrong reasons. We're not growing down because people aren't paying you enough, so they don't warrant your time. What we want is everyone to receive a given level of quality client experience. And it's just math. There's only so many of those that you can do, but that does not mean that they don't deserve it. So if they're not willing to take your advice, then I'd like to know how you plan on helping them. Because if they won't take your advice, that is the kryptonite. There is nothing you can do. And helping them find someone whose advice they will take is the best thing you can do for them. The byproduct will be, just like this picture, that by pruning back, more fruit will be produced. It's only happened every time. And so take that leap of faith to pare back for the benefit of that client, to receive advice from someone that they're willing to listen to focus and move up market with those that currently follow yours.
And listen, we have a huge backyard. A lot of stuff grows in our garden. I've held those clippers in my hands. It's not easy to clip. Sometimes you look at what you're about to clip off, you're like, wow, that's beautiful. What is it going to do? Sure enough, you come out 30, 60 days later, yep, it worked again, as a metaphor. But also, from a rejuvenation perspective for the team, and also in the spirit of your growth, you're landing in this sweet spot where you're able to tell a CPA, an attorney, any other influencer, or a client who's progressing in their relationship with you, that you're landing in a sweet spot where you're growing, but not at the expense of scarcity. You're not diluting the client experience. That's what going up market means as a result of growing down. And of course, I've been talking about AAA for 15 years, and I get myself into my sort of patterns and rituals where I'm going through the motions. Yeah, AAA is good. I like it. And I get validation all the time. The validation I've had in the last 60 days from teams that are really shining a light on AAA in terms of advocacy, in terms of growing down, in terms of going up market. It's never been more relevant than defining and professionalizing who you're suited for. The first A, where's the alignment of interest? Now and in the future, okay? It's an art to future pace a relationship to help a client understand where this is going, okay? Their needs now and in the future align with your expertise. It's a good fit. First A. Second A, attitudinal. Okay? It's not work. I'm not pumping up a leaky tire. There's no lack of chemistry or compatibility here. It's a good fit, and there's mutual respect. They return my calls. They're a joy to work with. My clients always, my staff loves seeing your number on the call display. It's just a joy. And they're advocates because they go out of their way, because they're not just bought into your values. They're advocates of the people they care about. And that's why they're introducing right now. And that's an interesting point, Chris. We've often said you're at the highest level of preferability right now. It's true. I mean, we see it all the time. The things that are coming out of the woodwork in terms of capturing new business and money in motion, no matter what's going on in the markets, I mean, $2 billion will be inherited today. I don't know how many high caliber clients are going to fire their financial advisor today. It still happens. Where's it going?
Well, we've given them a reason to. This market has provided that reason. Status quo was too easy to leave their advisor before. Now I've got a reason. Listen, we've seen this downturn. I kind of expected that. You always told me I was paying a fee because you'd protect me on the way down. And frankly, I just haven't seen it. I'm looking for someone with more of a process to handling the ups and downs, not just buy disciplines, but sell disciplines as well. And while I appreciate the relationship, we're gonna move somewhere else. We're looking to go somewhere else. Those conversations are happening, and these markets are providing the attitudinal qualities of people that you thought might be a fit, but you're like, whoa, didn't know that was there. And so use it to progress.
Fear is a powerful force in human nature. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of loss. If I'm an affluent client, prospective client, if I'm an affluent prospective client who happens to be a friend of your favorite client, my friend has endorsed you. It's easy for me to leave my advisor and come to you. It's just easier not to. But then the nudge happens because this triggers a moment of recognition that, you know what, I outgrew my advisor 5 years ago. He's a great guy, but no process, no client experience, calls me up with ideas and trying to sell me stuff. You know what? Now's the time.
You know what? That's so true. This market is the nudge. It's what it is.
It's this vein of gold, of untapped opportunity. Your clients have probably been endorsing you. Then it comes back up. They bare their soul to your clients. Make sure your clients know how to respond, which is why when you say, this is why I became a financial advisor, and you use social proof and say, this is the time where I'm just so fulfilled. I realize it's my calling because I'm talking to so many friends and family members and associates of my clients who are looking for a sounding board. It's so rejuvenating for us. We love what we do. Clients hear that. They want to share it with the right people. But you've got to be deliberate and intentional with AAA. So let's pivot from growing down to the next slide.
No.
And let's talk about moving up market.
You know, when moving up, right, the art and science of attracting business owners, so many of the elite advisor teams, this is their target market. This is where the wealth of America really lies, is within the hands of these business owners and professionals. And creating a process to bring predictability around where their needs are, both those that they are aware of and ones that they're not. There's so many different formats in which you can do that. Duncan, you're probably seeing it as much as I am. This is really, if there was a niche or a window of opportunity for growth, it's in this segment.
Well, it's interesting. For a long time, I've managed to convince a lot of advisors to focus exclusively on the millionaire next door, the blue collar, first generation, quiet affluence, right? The owner of the HVAC company, the owner of 4 or 5 car dealerships, the auctioneer, whatever the case may be. And sure enough, I mean, these are the complexity of needs now and in the future, the appreciation for the advisor's value, the insistence on engaging other service providers into the process. You're dealing with the highest level of predisposition and fit. Now, here's what's fascinating. Over those past, number of years, I've been telling advisors, you have to read 3 books to get right inside the head of the aspirations and the apprehensions of that client. And those 3 books have been The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, who says every business is built to be sold, The Millionaire Next Door, I mean, Tom Stanley is the guy who told business owners, hey, before you engage with a financial advisor, ask for their financial statement. I mean, unbelievable. And he was the first one that really got me understanding about demography and where money's going, and how most first-generation business owners deprive their kids of grit and experiential learning, because they're basically saying to themselves, I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through. And that learned helplessness that comes out of that, the safety net becomes a hammock of entitlement. And then the third book, Beer Money. Every family, when it comes to money, is either an example or a warning, right? An example of what to do, a warning, don't do that. And the whole premise of, privilege is being born on third base. Entitlement is thinking I hit a triple. And all the minefield of unintended consequences that come from self-made affluence when it shifts from first generation earned to second generation found. You've got to read those three books. But here's the thing. I'm adding a fourth book because there's a guy who I've known of for a long time. His name is Tom Deans. This is a guy, part of a family. It's now 4 generations of successful entrepreneurs. The congruency and credibility of this family is unreal. Liquidity events, I mean, it's textbook. But here's the thing. After they sold a substantial family business, he then went on, he said, I'm going to capture this. And he wrote a book called Every Family's Business. Essentially, how to be an example, how to get it right. And he and I, over this period of time, we started connecting. We started looking at how much money is going to change hands in the next 5 to 10 years. So Tom and I just did a deep dive, 90-minute webinar on how to master the art and science of attracting business owners. At a minimum, you've got to read Every Family's Business by Tom Deans. Those 12 questions that successful families ask before money goes into motion, profound. And if you want to go further than that, if you want to attract really attractive clients, you've got to make yourself really attractive. I would encourage you to watch the webinar that Tom Deans and I did. It'll be on the Knowledge Bank. And here's what's phenomenal. Because of this episode in the first part of 2020, advisors are now doing webinars, incredible webinars, and not all based on technical ability, but talking about form, drivers, and dynamics. The family meetings, advisors saying to their clients, look, there's never been a better time to talk as a family about money, and I will facilitate that conversation. And then PETA, right? Personal interviews with dad's advisors. Now I'm gonna let you go into that in a second, but
it's one that I started doing this with my kids, and I would encourage you to offer it as a service, just a value-added service that you're offering for your best clients, and that is a conversation with dad's investment advisor. This is for both your daughters, your sons. This is for their opportunity to begin to think about things that they haven't thought about before. My daughter, the one I referenced that just graduated, she was fortunate enough to be one of the few that got a job opportunity. She's filling out her application yesterday. She sends me a question. She goes, Dad, should I do 10, 8, or 6% in a 401k? I go, the max. She texts back, is that 10? I go, yes. I mean, these are the conversations. She's wondering, she found out what she's going to make. She thinks she might be getting all of that. We've got to go through the conversation of taxes. She's become more conservative at the end of that conversation, but that's another topic. She is very, I think, fortunate to have had the conversation and the introduction to my advisor so that when, should there ever be a need, that she has already met someone. She has someone. Should she have a question or anything happens, she would go there. Capturing second and third generation wealth happens intentionally. and not by accident. And that's a real reason why, as an industry, we're just terrible at it. And the few that are good at it, you can hear them saying when they speak to clients, one of the reasons why we have second, third, and fourth generation clients is we've laid out a legacy plan of education and adaptation to our clients' evolving needs. I love those advisors that future pace those types of relationships, and I'm fortunate to have one myself.
Very, very powerful, and that's part of the lexicon, right? That phrase. There is a reason why we have second, third, and fourth generation clients. It's because part of our process is to engage the family. It's so powerful. And here's two things on that. On the Knowledge Bank, one of our coaches, Scott, has done a series of videos, very snappy and to the point, on how to master Zoom. It's incredibly powerful, just the ins and outs and the nuts and bolts of mastering Zoom or Skype or whatever type of virtual interaction. But because of that, and because of a couple of conversations with advisors that are doing webinars, family meetings, and personal interviews with the kids of their best clients, I was talking to my kids yesterday. Now, my kids are 20 and 18. For now, they still live at home, of course. And a topic of taxes came up. And I said to my kids, how much do you think our family pays in taxes? And they guessed a number that wasn't even close. And this led to Dad getting up on the soapbox 30 minutes. Municipal, regional, provincial, federal tax, goods and services tax, sales tax, all the different forms of taxes we pay. The looks on my kids' faces, they're like, are you kidding me? And here's where the trigger was, because the government was talking about, obviously, some tax relief and some financial relief. And I happened to say, oh, that's cool. We're going to get some of our money back. And it just opened up this conversation. That was the trigger. And then fueled by my interactions with advisors, one of the most impactful conversations I've had with my kids. And I'm saying to myself, when it was all said and done, I waited this long to tell my kids about taxes. I mean, come on. So there's never been a better time to move up market, to embrace technology. And you talk about future pacing. The beauty about business owners, they can't outgrow your process. They will grow into your process as their life unfolds and their needs evolve. And to that point, if you have not embraced our little module called 7 Pillars, 1 Process as part of your reframe, you can do it virtually, just like this, over Zoom or Skype or whatever format you use. In a webinar, you can reintroduce yourself. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But there's just been never a better time to facilitate this and to seize on the fact that there's this vein of gold called business owners who are thinking about their options. And of course, engaging other service providers and not approaching an accountant or a lawyer with any form of pitching, but just positioning our process. Very, very powerful. Okay, last slide before we start to wind down. Let's really explain what depth and breadth means. First of all, the opportunity to rejuvenate as a financial professional, as a fee-for-service professional, rejuvenating your mindset, your best practices, your outlook, and the purpose and calling of what it means, the shadow you cast. It's not a job, and it's not how much you make, it's who you become. I hope that there's been incredible rejuvenation around your role in people's lives, because it is meaningful. And I mean, who else in business can say, oh yeah, I've got several second, third, and fourth generation clients? Who else can say that? Very rare. Reimagining Chris, you brought up a great point, and this is happening. How many clients have asked their advisor, hey, these virtual strategy and tactical meetings where we get together and we invest the past into the future and make our mid-course corrections and adjustments and just get ourselves centered. When we come out of all this, can we keep doing these? If I had a buck for every time I've heard a variation of that, there is such a profound opportunity to give yourself and your clients the gift of time while elevating the client experience by embracing this technology.
Well, I mean, how many just in the last month advisors saying, is this something we can continue to do? Our meetings used to go an hour and a half, hour and 45. Can I get another cookie? To all of a sudden we've got 35 minutes of agenda-driven, meaningful conversation, and everyone benefits because of it. I would encourage you to never dictate the modes of communication, but be open to the possibilities of soliciting from your clients what they find most helpful and giving them options. But anytime you can involve video on it, I would do that as well.
No question about it. And in the other webinar that you and I did called "This is Why You Became a Financial Advisor," we talked about the Venn diagram, right? The centering tool to get grounded. Very, very powerful. And it's interesting. I don't think I told you this, but one of my kids introduced me to this concept, a little bit obscure, but called seismic communication. And what it means is an elephant can hear from a mile away with its ears. It can feel with its feet 5 miles away. The vibration and the energy, it's phenomenal. And my point there is part of reframing and rejuvenating and reimagining your relationships is going beyond your technical ability, your core competency, feeling and believing and knowing as a composite is very, very powerful. And professionalizing that, again, with form and some of these other strategies. I cannot overstate how powerful it is to build on what matters and controls, that 3-minute trailer with form and the 3 Ps, and then going right in and a deeper dive into the 7 pillars. It was good when things were good. It is so much more impactful with any level of uncertainty in the world. So use that as part of your reframing.
What it does is powerful, but how it leaves them feeling is impactful. It's what they're going to remember, what they feel when they're done with that strategy and tactical meeting. And they will be left feeling that I'm working with someone that has their ducks in a row, that doesn't let things fall between the cracks, that can uncover some untapped opportunities, some vulnerabilities to my financial plan, unmet needs, and opportunities. This is what it communicates by having the process from the 7 pillars is it doesn't let things fall between the cracks. So revisit if you haven't recently.
Well, and you're right about as they feel, that is the fuel of advocacy, because a friend of a client of yours is going to feel how they are socializing your value. And I know you're a big fan of Jim Rohn. I just had a flashback. I think it was 25 years ago. I heard him talk about the fact that the words you say are like a pin, and people will feel that, but your energy and your conviction, it's like taking that pin and putting it onto a spear, and it'll pierce anything. And a client who feels your value and your conviction, they're going to carry that and relay it on in their attempts to be advocates. So
one of my favorite things, and that basically summarizes what we've talked about today, is also from Jim Rohn, where he said, your future equals the summation of your daily activities. And your future as a financial advisor that emerges from this correction of this market will be the summation of the daily activities, those that you take or those that you don't. And those that will emerge will begin to employ those activities that make them the advisor of choice. And I would encourage you to, if we can play a role in that, a deeper role, more meaningful role, we'd be humbled to do that. I know I speak for both Pareto and First Trust when I say that.
Well, 3 quick slides and we'll wrap this up. Let's move to the next slide. Taking action. You talked about this in the beginning. Why don't you take it away and we'll wrap up with these last 3 slides.
Yes, and this is what I mean by partnering in a deeper way, right? There's the advisor consulting group at First Trust, the knowledge bank within Pareto Systems, and we have just breadth of resources for you. Not that there's no lack of content out there, but the organization of that content so that it is more easily adapted and applicable. We think we've cracked the code on that within the knowledge bank and also on the advisor consulting group side of our website. So leverage that and be sure to connect with us.
Well, and that's what I'm really excited about, our virtual practice management summit that will be both live on May 28th and 29th presented, and then evergreen because it's archived, where I think we have now 12 very talented but diverse presenters with incredible themes, all with the context of the coiled spring. Now is the time to start pressing down your spring by working on the business. Beneath the surface, nobody can really see it happening, but you're engineering it. You're working, you're being proactive, you're being forthright and transparent, you're stirring the pot, but behind the scenes, your head's down because you know that there's going to come a time you're going to be able to let that loose, and it is going to propel you forward and take your 5-year plan and compress it into 24 months. So with that, I'll leave you with the last slide. We talk about the knowledge bank. That's a pretty meaningful URL there. You can also go to the Pareto Systems homepage and just access that. We're updating it on LinkedIn. We're updating the knowledge bank itself. We've got great partners, First Trust, Lavish Cards, Idea to Cantor. There's incredible resources that will help you manage through this, press your spring down, and emerge from this with unbelievable momentum. And I'll just cap it with this, Chris. I want advisory teams to refine and optimize what they do through Q3, launch in Q4 renewed, and make 2021 their best year ever. And
I have any doubt whatsoever that these will be some of the tools that they can use to get there. So we're grateful to have been a part of it. Thank you for everybody who tuned in.
And thank you for your time, Chris. We'll talk to you soon.